In the Balt slave market underground cells, two cloaked figures navigate the dim stone corridors toward their hidden destination.
A heavy key turns in a lock as the black-haired woman, her blue eyes glowing with intensity, finds the prisoner. Cling! A bruised hand grips the bars as the cloaked woman identifies the specific man she has been seeking.
Chained by his neck and wrists, a weary, silver-haired prisoner sits silently within the oppressive darkness of his cell.
Gasping in shock, the black-haired woman stares at the prisoner, realizing this is the man she must confront. Dropping her hood, Cecilia declares the man will be her sword and shield, threatening his life if he refuses. Cecilia grips the bars, vowing to use the man who once killed her to finally secure her dark revenge. A grim memory shows a knight over a body, contrasting with the saintly image of Arya Maxwell, the second princess. In the year 208, Cecilia screams in agony, desperately pleading that she was framed for poisoning her own father. Within the castle dungeon, Cecilia begs her pink-haired sister Arya to believe in her innocence and offer her mercy. Arya puts on a sympathetic facade, claiming she knows Cecilia would never attempt to poison the Emperor. Arya's expression turns chillingly malicious as she leans in and whispers the truth. She was the one who poisoned him. Horror washes over Cecilia as Arya mocks her uselessness, deciding that her sister must now die for her plans. Shards of the past shatter as Cecilia realizes Arya used her detoxification ability merely to eliminate the other royal heirs. Thorny vines symbolize the pain of betrayal as Cecilia mourns the fact she once truly adored her treacherous sister. Arya stands over her doomed sister, smugly promising to end her life using her personal favorite servant. Daniel, a striking silver-haired knight, stands among roses. Arya recalls buying him from the slave fighting pits on impulse. Arya clings to Daniel with a triumphant smile, her twisted affection masking the cold utility he provides her. With a cold, narrowing gaze, Arya tells her sister to die without suffering too much, sealing her cruel fate. Blood spatters as Daniel draws his blade, ignoring Cecilia's desperate screams for him to stop his fatal strike. Betrayed and executed without trial, Cecilia's life ends in a pool of blood at the hands of a slave knight. Gasp! Cecilia bolts upright in bed, heart racing as she realizes the nightmare of her death has suddenly ended. Bewildered, Cecilia looks around her luxurious bedroom, struggling to comprehend how she has returned to her former life. A mirror reveals her younger self. Cecilia realizes she has traveled back 5 years before her tragic execution. In a complete reversal of fate, Cecilia now stands before a shackled Daniel, leading him through the palace halls. Cecilia provides Daniel a room in Maxwell Castle, leaving him suspicious of why a royal woman would purchase him. Handing him a fresh set of clothes, Cecilia tells Daniel to discard his rags and prepare for his new role. While Daniel considers killing her to escape, he decides to wait and observe the mysterious woman who bought him. A gruesome purple poison scar marring Daniel's back is revealed, pulsating with a dark and lingering necrotic energy. Recognition flashes in Cecilia's eyes as she spots the wound, realizing exactly what kind of pain Daniel is enduring. Cecilia identifies the poison scar, causing Daniel to flinch in surprise as she reaches out to touch the injury. Daniel turns away, warning Cecilia that his wound is dangerous and that she should avoid touching the toxic mark. Despite his protests, Cecilia places her hand firmly on the scar, determined to prove the power of her unique gift. Daniel's eyes widen in disbelief as the searing agony of the poison begins to vanish under Cecilia's soothing touch. A purple aura glows from Cecilia's hand, drawing out the toxins as Daniel realizes her incredible ability is real. Dark, flower-like marks spread across Cecilia's face as she asks Daniel if he is feeling better after her treatment.
Looking up with an intense, blue-eyed stare, Cecilia asks the knight if he truly knows who she is.
Startled and vulnerable, Daniel asks if she belongs to the Maxwell family, sensing the weight of her royal authority. Formally introducing herself as Cecilia Maxwell, the Poison Princess, she commands the knight to assist in her grand revenge. Legend states that the Maxwell heirs possess special powers, and the strongest among them is choosing to lead the empire. Cecilia fought her 3 half-sisters for the crown, but one among them stood out as a truly extraordinary prodigy. Arya Maxwell, the second princess, used her clairvoyance to save the people, earning a reputation as a compassionate saint. The public adored Arya, and it was widely believed that she would inevitably be crowned as the next empress. In contrast, Cecilia was despised by her father and the people for her detoxification ability and her eerie appearance. Surrounded by a silver frame, the title The Poison Princess serves as a cruel reminder of the royal scorn she endured. Before learning the truth, Cecilia lived as the emperor's hidden poison tester, purifying toxins in secret within the palace shadows. Arya often visited Cecilia, feigning sisterly love while Cecilia suffered from the disfiguring marks caused by her detoxification power. Ashamed of her looks, Cecilia hides under a heavy hood, believing she can never walk proudly among the beautiful royals. Arya plays the part of the concerned sister, asking Cecilia if someone has been cruel to her because of her face. Cecilia laments the disgusting marks that plague her skin, unaware that her kind sister is the source of her misery. Arya embraces Cecilia, pretending to offer warmth and comfort within the palace's brightly lit halls. Faking a gentle smile, Arya whispers that Cecilia's appearance and abilities don't change her status as precious family. Desperate for love, Cecilia clings to her sister, grateful that someone finally looks past her disfiguring detoxification marks. Cecilia's eyes widen as Arya proposes they work together to use Cecilia's hidden power for the Empire's betterment. Arya's expression is soft and persuasive as she claims Cecilia's unique gift is necessary for a brighter future. Feeling a rare spark of joy, Cecilia believes she has finally found the acknowledgement she has always craved. Lost in the warmth of the embrace, Cecilia experiences a sense of belonging and love for the very first time. The facade crumbles as Arya's gaze turns chillingly sinister, revealing that Cecilia was merely a tool in her scheme. Using Cecilia's power, Arya eliminates her rival sisters, securing her father's absolute trust while the others fall from grace. As Arya basks in public adoration, a naive Cecilia believes their partnership will endure forever in the shadows. The betrayal is finalized when Arya murders the Emperor and pins the gruesome regicide on her unsuspecting sister. Laughing with wide-eyed madness, Arya watches from the shadows as Cecilia is executed, her perfect plan finally complete. Awakening 5 years in the past, Cecilia burns a portrait of her sister, swearing a blood-soaked revenge against Arya. From behind a pillar, Cecilia watches her sister's fake smiles, determined to make Arya experience a far greater despair. As Arya laughs among flowers, Cecilia vows to methodically dismantle her sister's life and reclaim everything she owns. Over the next year, Cecilia plays the part of the dutiful sister while secretly hunting for her future executioner. Cecilia searches through palace records until she finally locates Daniel, the slave knight who once ended her life. A golden frame highlights Daniel Knox, the man legendary for being the strongest fighter in the slave arena. Within her private quarters, the silver-haired Daniel looks at Cecilia with a wary, questioning gaze. Daniel asks if her detox power harms her, causing Cecilia to wonder if he is truly worried or probing her. Standing before the muscular, shirtless knight, Cecilia maintains her cold composure, ignoring his questions about her well-being. Looking away with a calculating stare, Cecilia reminds herself that this man is the essential tool for her vengeance. A dark vision reveals Cecilia's ultimate goal, using Daniel to run a blade through Arya's treacherous heart. From behind, the scarred Daniel realizes her identity, knowing only the fourth princess can possess such potent detoxification magic. Daniel lets out a dry laugh, clutching his head as he realizes he has been purchased by a royal princess. His expression turns dark and opportunistic, thinking he might be able to use the princess for his own ends. The door clicks open as Cecilia enters the next morning, greeting the night with a calm, regal authority. Surprised by her solitary presence, Daniel asks why a princess would visit a slave without any accompanying handmaidens. Cecilia explains her servants are terrified of him, and she prefers to keep her dealings with him a secret. Silence fills the room as Cecilia studies the man she intends to forge into her personal weapon of war. A quick clack of cutlery sounds as the two share a tense breakfast together in her private chambers. While eating, Daniel questions her previous claim that she bought him specifically to help her achieve a dark revenge. Resting her chin on her hands, Cecilia gives him a mysterious smile, wondering how well her new plan will work. Suddenly, Daniel begins to choke, realizing with horror that Cecilia has personally served him a tray of poisoned food. Clutching his throat as he loses consciousness, Daniel stares at the princess in shock, realizing her ruthlessness knows no bounds. Gasps for air escape the night as the poison takes hold, forcing him to witness the princess's cold, unwavering gaze. Cecilia warns that she will kill him if he ever betrays her, offering the antidote only in exchange for loyalty. Daniel realizes her words are not a bluff as the poison spreads, leaving him with a desperate choice to survive. Looming over him, Cecilia commands him to swear his loyalty immediately before the toxins become permanently fatal. She asks if he is truly willing to die after finally escaping the slave pits, her blue eyes glowing intensely. Overwhelmed by rage against the royals, Daniel determines that he must survive at any cost, regardless of the method. A purple aura surrounds the gasping knight as he finally forces out a desperate vow of loyalty to her. Standing tall against the morning light, Cecilia questions the sincerity of his oath while he trembles at her feet. She leans in close to the defeated man, her presence oppressive as she prepares to administer the life-saving antidote. Cecilia issues a final, chilling warning. If he breaks his vow, he will die a slow, unnoticed death by poison. Trembling with exertion, Daniel shouts his promise never to betray her, his survival now tied to her whims. Cecilia tilts his chin up with her marked hand, the purple toxins from her detox power glowing against her skin. She declares he will be her knight in public, but in private, he is merely a pawn for her revenge. Daniel quietly accepts his new role as Cecilia walks away, leaving him alone to contemplate his newfound servitude. The heavy door slams shut with a loud bang as Daniel leaves, his destiny now irrevocably entwined with the princess. Daniel stares off, considering how he might use Cecilia Maxwell as a pawn for his own looming revenge. Cecilia looks on Daniel, reflecting that she never intended to kill him, despite the toxic ordeal he endured. Looking at her marked palm, Cecilia declares her revenge officially begins, knowing she has yet to tame him. Her blue eyes glow with intense hatred as Cecilia vows to drag her treacherous sister, Arya, down to hell. Cecilia responds to an unseen presence with a calm query, her face still bearing the purple signs of detoxification. Shock fills Cecilia's expression when she receives an envelope and realizes it was sent directly from Princess Arya. Cecilia stares at the folded paper, her mind racing at the sudden, unwelcome contact from her manipulative sister. The letter contains Aria's deceptive concern, questioning Cecilia's reasons for purchasing a slave and offering false assistance. Cecilia sees through the facade, noting how quickly Aria's information network discovered her private purchase of the slave. A white flower tied with a ribbon accompanies the letter, signed as a token of love from Aria. Cecilia identifies the gift as the breath of the dead, a plant used to create an excruciatingly painful toxin. Because poison doesn't affect her, Cecilia recognizes the flower as a mocking insult sent to taunt her unique abilities. A sharp crunch sounds as Cecilia destroys the poisonous bloom, refusing to be underestimated by her sister any longer. The princess turns her attention toward a maid in the doorway, shifting her focus back to palace business. Cecilia commands Daniel to discard his rags and change into the fresh, high-quality clothes she has provided for him. Daniel pauses while reading a book, looking up with a confused and questioning stare at the princess's order. Cecilia sternly warns the knight to remain silent wherever they are going, demanding absolute compliance for her plan. She reveals they are meeting her sister, instructing Daniel that his only role is to stand silently beside her. Daniel watches her skeptically, interpreting her command as a simple order to shut up and avoid causing trouble. Crossing her arms, Cecilia notes that the knight seems entirely indifferent to undressing in front of other people. Shirtless and displaying his massive frame, Daniel stands dangerously close to Cecilia within the confines of her quarters. The knight leans in dangerously close, asking if she expects the same intimate treatment other slave owners demand. Daniel speaks cynically of the hidden services nobles often demand, his eyes fixed on the princess's reaction. Boldly invading her space, Daniel takes a lock of Cecilia's dark hair and pulls her closer toward him. Startled by his sudden aggression, Cecilia lets out a gasp of surprise as the knight challenges her royal authority. Daniel smirks with a dark, satisfied glint in his red eyes, relishing the princess's momentarily shaken composure. Cecilia quickly regains her poise, coldly telling the knight not to be stupid and asserting her dominance. As Daniel looks away, Cecilia wonders how she can best utilize the knight to dismantle her sister's life. Cecilia's eyes remain wide with shock as she tries to process the knight's unexpectedly bold and defiant behavior. Daniel touches his bare chest, thinking that his new position could finally provide the opportunity he needs. With a face full of resolve, Daniel vows that he will do anything necessary to achieve his revenge. A crackling sound accompanies a vision of intense flames, signaling a traumatic memory from the knight's dark past. 12 years ago, a young Daniel watched in horror as his family home burned while crying for his parents. Tears stream down the boy's face as he stands helpless against the destruction of his noble life and family. The boy spots a carriage and a royal flag, realizing the Empire's soldiers are responsible for the massacre. In the present, Daniel's hand clenches around a royal banner, the sound of tearing fabric echoing his inner rage. A dark smile touches Daniel's lips as he realizes his long-awaited dream of vengeance might finally come true. Clasping his head in a fit of dark emotion, Daniel swears he will kill every member of the family. Walking through the halls in a dark uniform, Daniel's red eyes burn with a lethal and unwavering hatred. 12 years ago, a butler led a young Lord Alexei into the dark forest to escape the burning estate. The servant pleaded with the young lord to hide in a cave while he went to find a horse. Labeled as traitors by the emperor, Daniel's family home was lost to the flames, leaving him in grave danger. Daniel reflects on his naivety as two masked men appeared instead of the butler who was supposed to help. A heavy clink sounds as a sack of money is exchanged,
revealing the butler sold Daniel to slave traders.
For years, Daniel was forced into hard labor and used as a plaything by nobles, desperate only to survive. Eventually, Daniel began competing in the slave-fighting pits, fueled by a smoldering resentment toward the royal family. A sudden tug sounds as a hand grabs Daniel's shirt, pulling him out of his dark, introspective memories. The scene shifts to a bustling market street where Daniel stands with a small, blonde-haired girl. The young girl looks up with wide, innocent eyes, asking her big brother if his painful injury still hurts. Daniel offers a soft, sad smile to the child, a rare moment of gentleness amidst his life of hardship. Daniel recalls his time serving the Cardia family, standing by Duke Cardia and the young, blonde-haired Elisa. In the memory, the Duke and little Elisa share a moment of happiness as they look toward him. The silver-haired Daniel continues his pleasant recollection of running through sun-drenched gardens while guarding the joyful Elisa. Present-day Daniel lies peacefully on a bed, dressed in noble attire and reflecting on his transition from slavery. He marvels at the sudden tranquility of his new life, wondering if he can truly live like a person again.
A bright memory of Elisa's smile begins to fade as a dark, oppressive red energy consumes the vision.
Tears of anguish well in Daniel's red eyes as the weight of his tragic past begins to resurface. Blood stains a noble hand as the Emperor declares a brutal purge against Daniel's clan for alleged treachery. A shattered mirror reflects Daniel's grief as he mourns the family and noble identity taken by false accusations. Images of his lost family fragment and fall away, leaving Daniel alone with the bitterness of his stolen life.
Daniel's face contorts with silent, agonizing rage as he relives the destruction of everything he once held dear. Looking at a portrait of the Emperor, Daniel vows he will never forgive the royal family for their crimes.
Red light glows around Daniel as he swears to personally kill every last member of the imperial lineage. Daniel adjusts his new uniform, deciding to use Cecilia Maxwell as a convenient cover for his looming revenge. Touching his head, Daniel questions if his current path is truly acceptable as he continues his quiet scheming.
Cecilia's dark memories resurface as she looks at Daniel, recalling the terrifying moment he killed her in her past life.
Steeling herself, Cecilia leads Daniel toward their meeting with Arya, hiding her inner turmoil behind a regal mask. Daniel watches Cecilia closely, realizing he must win the princess over to ensure his own plans can proceed. The scene shifts to a grand, sunlit palace where Arya Maxwell resides, surrounded by an air of false beauty. Arya Maxwell appears with a deceptive, sweet smile, her long pink hair adorned with shimmering jewels and flowers. Cecilia bows her head, thanking her sister for the invitation, while Daniel stands like a silent shadow behind her. Arya greets them from a lavish seat, maintaining her perfect princess persona as she welcomes her younger sister. Cecilia plays the role of a disadvantaged royal, explaining her lack of resources and connections to her manipulative sister. Arya feigns deep sisterly concern, grasping Cecilia's hands with an expression of performative and shallow affection. Arya's blue eyes sparkle with a predatory light while she maintains her bubbly and cheerful facade for the audience. Cecilia forces a bright smile, promising to seek Arya's counsel in the future to maintain their fragile social peace. Daniel studies Arya's sudden shift in behavior, noting the extreme contrast between her public image and her true nature. The sisters share a moment of artificial laughter, both hiding their lethal intentions behind masks of sibling love. Daniel stands motionless, the purple aura of Cecilia's magic highlighting the immense tension felt within the palace room. Arya privately admires Daniel's impressive physique, thinking he is a waste of talent in Cecilia's current service. Arya decides she will steal the night for herself,
intending to make him part of her own personal guard.
Later, Cecilia and Daniel sit together in a carriage, the silence between them thick with unspoken plans and suspicion. Staring out the window, Cecilia reflects on her need for Daniel's strength to achieve her ultimate goal of vengeance.
Cecilia looks at Daniel with a cold, calculating intensity, declaring that the man who once killed her is now her tool.
A vision of Cecilia standing over Arya's fallen body reveals the dark, singular focus of her quest for revenge. The carriage approaches a grand estate as the sun sets, marking the beginning of the next phase of her plan. Daniel follows Cecilia through the palace hallways, his heavy boots sounding against the carpet as they walk in silence. Cecilia stops to confront Daniel, her face still bearing the purple signs of her potent detoxification power. Daniel stares down at the princess, his red eyes questioning her next move in their dangerous shared game. Cecilia studies the knight's face, her pale blue eyes searching for any hint of betrayal or hidden motive. Cecilia wonders if she should reveal her plan for revenge against Arya, though she still feels a lack of trust. Turning back to face him, Cecilia demands to know the knight's true thoughts on their recent encounter with Arya. Daniel questions her again, pressing for details about her target and his specific role in her grand design. Cecilia narrows her eyes, realizing the knight is far more observant and dangerous than she initially believed. Daniel demands to know who the target is and what he must do to fulfill his vow of loyalty. Cecilia commands Daniel to protect her above all else, asserting that her safety is his only immediate priority. Looking away with a cold stare, Cecilia decides she will keep her full plans hidden for the time being. Daniel realizes the princess's relationship with Arya is suspicious, finding her choice to buy a slave highly unusual. He notes that Cecilia has no intention of talking, her silent resolve frustrating his attempts to probe her secrets. Daniel accepts her command for silence, deciding to stop prying and simply wait for his opportunity to strike. Cecilia stares in confusion, trying to decipher the knight's true intentions behind his sudden, cryptic behavior. Surrounded by shimmering blue roses, Daniel and Cecilia stand together in a moment of heavy, silent tension. Daniel offers a soft, mysterious smile, expressing his hope that Cecilia will eventually reveal her secrets to him. Cecilia walks away with a firm resolve, her mind already racing with plans to secure her survival. Daniel pulls his shirt open, exposing a torso marked by numerous scars that tell of a violent past. Standing shirtless in the sunlight, Daniel reflects on his task to guard the princess while his scars glisten. A vision of a joyful Elisa fades as Daniel bows his head, haunted by memories of his past servitude. Daniel's red eyes burn with skepticism as he questions the idea of protecting a member of the royalty. Realizing he must earn Cecilia's trust to achieve his vengeance, Daniel prepares to play whatever role is necessary. Touching his scarred chest, Daniel vows to become Cecilia's loyal tool if it grants him the revenge he craves. Cecilia focuses on her dark goal of ending Arya, just as Daniel once ended her in their past life. Looking forward with cold blue eyes, Cecilia reminds herself that she can never truly trust anyone again. Cecilia decides to analyze Daniel later, prioritizing her immediate need to plan her next moves against her sister. A decorative frame highlights the mention of Arya's unique and powerful ability to see the future. Cecilia admits she lacks details on Arya's foresight, watching her sister pray with a deceptive air of innocence. The princess fears Arya might use her glowing eye to foresee betrayal and strike before Cecilia can act. A horrifying vision of her own death resurfaces, warning Cecilia that her tragic history might repeat itself. Blue roses frame Cecilia's plan to investigate Arya's powers during a crucial upcoming event.
The royal palace looms under a night sky as Cecilia recalls the founding festival that cemented Arya's status.
Cecilia smiles with dark intent, deciding to turn the upcoming festival into an opportunity for her own gain.
A butler presents a formal summons, announcing that the Emperor has called the princesses to discuss the festival.
Cecilia's gaze narrows as she processes the news, her mind instantly shifting into a mode of cold calculation. A red dragon banner marks the start of the founding festival, the nation's most celebrated annual event.
During the celebration, even ordinary citizens are granted the rare chance to step inside the grand royal castle. The imperial family gathers on a high balcony to address the crowds, surrounded by an aura of divine authority.
Daniel is overcome with a flash of rage, realizing the summons will bring him face to face with the Emperor.
Cecilia reads the official document while Daniel stands behind her, his presence a silent and brooding weight.
Clutching the paper, Cecilia declares that she must attend this time to ensure her plans remain on track.
The following day, the gray-haired emperor sits upon his golden throne, exuding an air of absolute command. First Princess Karina and Second Princess Lydia appear in their finery, each maintaining a polished and noble facade. The four sisters stand together before their father, a display of unity that hides their deep-seated rivalries. The emperor addresses his daughters with a stern gaze, welcoming them back to the center of imperial power. Arya reacts with wide-eyed surprise, her pink hair catching the light as she awaits her father's next command.
Second Princess Lydia scowls with evident displeasure, her sharp features reflecting her hidden resentment toward the situation.
Bowing her head gracefully, Arya expresses her deep honor at being chosen by her father for a special task. The emperor dismisses the others, asking Arya to remain behind for a private and high-stakes conversation. The sisters and their attendants bow low as they prepare to leave the throne room in an orderly fashion.
Daniel's face is set in a grim mask of determination as he navigates the halls of the enemy's palace.
Cecilia notices Daniel's distraction and asks if he is leaving her side during this critical moment. Daniel offers a polite apology, claiming he nearly forgot his duties while his mind clearly lingers elsewhere. Cecilia watches the Emperor and Arya closely, her curiosity piqued by the secret nature of their meeting. Walking down the long palace corridor, Cecilia and Daniel maintain a distance that reflects their mutual suspicion. A quick tap sounds as Daniel asks what is on her mind, breaking the heavy silence of the hallway. Daniel instructs Cecilia to return to the carriage first, a command that catches the princess off guard. Thinking quickly, Cecilia claims she must visit the restroom, using the excuse to linger and eavesdrop. Daniel agrees to wait outside, though his watchful eyes suggest he is not entirely fooled by her excuse. Cecilia hides and listens as the Emperor asks Arya to use her powers to predict the festival's outcome. Arya accepts the task with a confident nod, promising her father that she will reveal the future. Closing her eyes in concentration, Arya begins to channel her foresight as Cecilia watches from the shadows. Arya looks up with a serene and bright expression, assuring the Emperor that there are no concerns ahead. The gray-haired Emperor gazes out the window, his stern profile reflecting the heavy burdens of an absolute ruler. Cecilia watches from the shadows, realizing Arya's future sight could be a lethal obstacle to her own survival. Startled, Cecilia spots her sisters Karina and Lydia approaching Daniel in the middle of the palace gardens. Lydia and Karina mock Cecilia with sharp tongues, sneering at her reputation as the infamous Poison Princess. Cecilia is visibly annoyed by the unexpected encounter,
her blue eyes narrowing at her troublesome and arrogant older sisters. Arya joins the group, suggesting that Cecilia is simply envious because she lacks her own high-ranking personal knight. Maintaining her radiant persona, Arya offers a dazzling smile that hides the predatory and sharp edges of her ambition. Cecilia remains stoic while realizing that Arya is using her sweet demeanor to deliver a calculated and public insult. Daniel stands tall in his ornate blue uniform, his silver hair shimmering as he observes the royal sisters bickering. Arya's gaze lingers on Daniel, mentioning the intimate traditions princesses share with their favorite knights during the night. Cecilia reflects on the scandalous palace rumors regarding Arya's private life and her unconventional relationships with her guards. Daniel offers a polite but distant smile, his red eyes revealing nothing of his true thoughts or hidden motives. Daniel firmly declines Arya's subtle invitation, his stoic refusal creating a sudden, awkward tension in the garden air. Cecilia is stunned by the knight's bold rejection of the favored princess, her mouth falling open in genuine shock. Cecilia looks at Daniel with newfound intrigue, questioning why he would pass up such a powerful potential ally. Shimmering flowers of every color fill the garden, providing a beautiful but deceptive backdrop to the royal power struggle. From a distance, the royal group appears like a peaceful gathering within the grand and sprawling palace courtyard. Daniel stands firmly behind Cecilia as they face her sisters, his silent presence serving as a protective shield. Cecilia dismisses her sister's interest in Daniel, explaining that she is merely training him as a former slave. Daniel maintains a neutral expression, showing no reaction to being described as a lowly tool for the princess. The silver-haired knight bows his head, outwardly accepting his master's public explanation, while his true intentions remain veiled. Arya forces a sweet reply, though her eyes betray a flicker of irritation at being denied what she wants. Cecilia gracefully takes her leave, thanking Arya for her generosity as Daniel follows her away from the group. The three sisters watch Cecilia and Daniel depart, their unified facade beginning to crumble into mutual suspicion. Lydia and Karina whisper to each other, finding the strange bond between the poison princess and her slave suspicious. Karina delivers a final petty insult towards Cecilia's appearance, her vanity blinding her to the true danger approaching. Arya stands alone, her pink hair cascading down her back as she watches her sister's retreating figure with intensity. Arya's mask of innocence finally shatters, a heavy sigh escaping her as her face contorts with sudden rage. Turning back to her sisters, Arya claims she must begin festival preparations, her bubbly voice returning as a weapon. Her heels click sharply against the stone as Arya's internal monologue seethes with an unforgivable and mounting hatred. Arya rages internally, disgusted by the idea of the useless Cecilia acting with such newfound confidence and authority. Chewing her glove in a fit of pique, Arya vows to find a way to vent her murderous anger. A dark and calculated thought crosses Arya's mind, her expression smoothing over as a new plan takes shape. Arya promises herself a spectacular show, intending to crush Cecilia's spirit and make her remember her lowly place. The grand estate stands silent under the afternoon sun, unaware of the lethal conspiracies brewing within its walls. Cecilia and Daniel walk in tandem through the palace entrance, their silhouettes framed by the fading sunlight outside. Cecilia tries to process the chaotic encounter, her thoughts swirling as she attempts to maintain her icy composure. Cecilia looks at Daniel, feeling a strange pull toward the mysterious man who now holds her life. A close-up of Daniel's chest highlights the intricate details of his Royal Guard uniform and the blue gem. Cecilia looks up at the knight, her pale blue eyes searching for any sign of his true loyalty. Daniel gazes down at the princess with a sharp, piercing look that makes her heart skip a beat.
Cecilia feels a sudden flush rising to her cheeks, caught off guard by the knight's intense and close proximity. Daniel pulls Cecilia closer, his gloved hand resting firmly on her waist to steady her against the palace wall.
Daniel reflects that taking such a bold action was the best choice to assert his dominance in the moment.
Cecilia is left breathless and confused, wondering about the source of the strange, fluttering feeling in her chest.
A grim vision of Daniel's past in chains resurfaces, reminding Cecilia of the cruelty he has already survived.
The memory of his suffering as a slave lingers, painting a tragic picture of the man beneath the armor. Cecilia warns Daniel against making her sisters his enemies, her voice trembling slightly from their lingering physical closeness.
Daniel replies with a cryptic and confident air, seemingly unfazed by the potential wrath of the royal family.
They stand together in the quiet corridor, a princess and her knight, bound by secrets and dangerous mutual attraction. Arya contemplates her next move, certain that Cecilia's newfound confidence is a direct assault on her pride. Cecilia resolves to strike first, realizing she must act before her sister can execute a retaliatory plan.
A quick tap echoes as Daniel stands as a silent sentinel while Cecilia enters her sister's quarters.
Arya greets them with a superficial smile, questioning the purpose of their sudden and unannounced visit. Sipping her tea, Arya maintains a polite front while Cecilia watches her with hidden, calculated intensity. Cecilia formally requests to assist with the festival preparations, catching the favored princess completely off guard. Arya appears surprised by the offer, though a dark and predatory smirk begins to form on her lips. Clasping her hands, Arya offers a flowery thanks, hiding her malice behind a facade of sibling affection. Later that night, Cecilia plays a solitary game of chess, her mind analyzing the kingdom's supernatural power structures. She reflects on the 4 elemental powers inherited by the royal bloodline: light, earth, wind, and darkness. Miraculous energy spheres represent the varying strengths of these abilities, which grow more prominent with pure blood. An ornate frame highlights the rarest ability of all, the pinnacle of the imperial family's divine authority. A clack sounds as Cecilia topples a piece, identifying Arya's future sight as the most dangerous light-type power. A flashback reveals a young Arya watching a storm clear, her blue eyes wide with her first vision. Her mother, Teresa, reacts with joyous shock, realizing the immense political value of her daughter's emerging gift. Teresa leads the young girl through the palace, eager to present this miraculous child to the emperor. The testimony of Teresa confirms Arya's future sight, fundamentally changing the power dynamics within the royal family. From that day forward, the emperor relied solely on Arya's predictions to guide the empire's most critical decisions. Arya became the emperor's undisputed favorite, receiving the trust and affection that her sisters were cruelly denied.
A glowing crown symbolizes the widespread belief that Arya is the only logical choice to inherit the throne.
Bathed in golden light, Arya exudes the serene confidence of a woman destined to rule an entire empire.
Returning to the present, Cecilia gazes at the moon, plotting to dismantle the myth of Arya's infallible foresight.
She wonders what will become of her sister once the festival proves her precious visions are flawed. Returning to a few hours earlier, Cecilia and Daniel stand before Arya to discuss the upcoming festival. Cecilia offers a humble apology for her past discourtesy, claiming a sincere desire to support her older sister. Arya listens with a bored and skeptical expression, her eyes reflecting her deep-seated disdain for the Poison Princess. Rising from her seat, Arya puts on a dazzling show of sisterly love as she accepts Cecilia's offer. Arya mentions her upcoming ceremonial address, wondering aloud what task would be suitable for her useless younger sister.
Internally, Arya seethes with disgust,
determined to assign Cecilia a task that will make her feel truly filthy.
Cecilia stands firm, her gaze meeting Aria's as she waits for the trap she knows is coming.
A close-up of Aria's face reveals a chilling and satisfied smile as her lethal plan takes shape.
Arya mentions a sudden bloom of poisonous flowers near the capital, presenting it as a grave public concern. She explains that the toxic pollen threatens the health of the citizens, playing the role of a benevolent protector.
Arya feigns deep worry for the people, using her sweet voice to lure Cecilia into a deadly mission.
Showing a collapsed man, Arya notes that ordinary people would be poisoned instantly by merely approaching the bloom.
Cecilia processes the request, her sharp mind immediately identifying the predatory nature of her sister's special task.
Cecilia realizes Arya wants to leave her incapacitated and poisoned before the festival to humiliate her publicly.
Arya's expression remains sharp and expectant, knowing that even immunity won't spare Cecilia from the painful symptoms. Arya asks Cecilia for her thoughts, enjoying the pressure she is exerting on her sister in Daniel's presence. Sensing hesitation, Arya leans in with a manipulative grin, questioning if Cecilia truly intends to refuse the task. Arya envisions the public's disgust when they see Cecilia's body ravaged by the flower's potent and visible toxins.
Daniel watches the exchange with a grim and sweating face, sensing the lethal danger hidden in Arya's request.
The silver-haired knight realizes Arya is heartlessly exploiting Cecilia's unique constitution for a cruel and public experiment.
Daniel reflects that the mission is entirely inappropriate for a princess, even one with a reputation for poison.
Cecilia accepts the challenge with a bright and fearless smile, catching Arya completely off balance with her bravery.
Surprised by the swift agreement, Arya's mask of calm falters as she stares at her unexpectedly confident sister.
Cecilia remains composed, her blue eyes sparkling with a secret defiance that Arya cannot yet begin to comprehend.
Arya specifies that the Morvelina flowers have overtaken a large section of the forest near the capital.
Cecilia recalls that Morvelina causes respiratory failure and would leave her physically broken for several critical days.
Arya claims her vision showed guests being harmed, using her divine authority to seal Cecilia's dangerous fate.
Cecilia suspects Arya's claim of seeing nothing, wondering if her sister is lying to manipulate her into the mission.
Arya maintains her mask of innocent charm, watching her younger sister with a subtle and predatory gleam in her eyes. Accepting the dangerous request, Cecilia calls Arya her beloved sister, while hiding her own calculated resolve behind a smile.
Arya clasps her hands together in mock delight, satisfied that her trap has been so easily and willingly accepted.
As they walk through the palace, Daniel questions whether Cecilia truly needs to undertake such a hazardous task personally. A few days pass, revealing a meadow choked with the beautiful yet lethal purple Morvelina flowers near the capital.
Arriving at the site, Cecilia confirms the location while the silver-haired knight stands vigilant and silent at her side.
Cecilia gazes at the toxic flora, her mind already working through the details of her sister's cruel public experiment.
Kneeling among the blossoms, Cecilia plans to turn the poisonous flowers into a weapon for her own survival.
Cecilia sharply warns Daniel to stay upwind, explaining the pollen's immediate and devastating effect on the human respiratory system.
Daniel stares at the forest, his expression darkening as he considers the primal and destructive power of fire. A haunting vision of an engulfed building surfaces, reflecting the traumatic memories of Daniel's past as he watches the fire. Daniel rubs his forehead in distress before confirming he will begin the necessary task for Cecilia's dangerous plan. Standing over a small, crackling campfire, Daniel watches as the flames begin to consume the wood and brush. Cecilia emerges from the brush, her face and hands covered in dark floral poison stains from the potent morvalina.
Carrying a basket of the toxic harvest, Cecilia approaches Daniel, her expression unreadable despite the visible effects of the poison.
Daniel reflects on the strangeness of being deep in the mountains alone with a princess who lacks any attendants. He wonders at her lack of fear regarding his possible escape, noting her stark difference from other entitled royals. Daniel turns away, his face a mask of cold detachment as he struggles to reconcile his mission with his resentment.
The knight resolves to suppress his feelings, intending to use the princess merely as a means to achieve his goals.
Watching her work, Daniel reminds himself to stay focused on his original objectives despite the princess's peculiar behavior. A close-up of Daniel's red eye reveals his cold intent to view Cecilia only as Elisa, his former master.
Stained by the dark poison, Cecilia defiantly asks, "So what?" when Daniel questions her willingness to suffer such damage.
Daniel's frustration mounts as he questions why Cecilia is being so needlessly stubborn in the face of such agony.
Cecilia commands the silver-haired knight to simply stand there and watch her, fulfilling his role as a proper sentinel.
Daniel reflects that Cecilia could have avoided all this pain if she had simply gifted him to her sister.
Crossing his arms, the knight coldly decides that Cecilia's eventual collapse would actually be more convenient for his plans.
Daniel covers his face with a gloved hand, reacting to the encroaching toxic fumes and the heat of the fire. The scene pulls back to show the isolated clearing where the small fire burns amidst the dense green forest.
Cecilia begins to feel the weight of the toxins, her vision blurring as she worries she inhaled too much poison. Stumbling under the influence of the morvalina, Cecilia clutches her face, her strength rapidly failing her in the clearing.
Cecilia's consciousness begins to slip away as she watches the harvested flowers fall from her numbing, stained hands.
Losing her footing near a ledge, Cecilia begins to fall backward, the world spinning as her body finally gives out.
Daniel lunges forward with a desperate cry of Cecilia's name, his facade of cold indifference instantly shattering to save her. His gloved hand snaps out, gripping Cecilia's arm just in time to stop her from plummeting down the rocky slope. Daniel pulls the poisoned princess into a protective embrace, surrounded by the swirling petals of the beautiful, deadly flowers. Thick, dark smoke billows around them, and Daniel curses as the fumes begin to affect his own breathing and vision. Despite her own fading strength, Cecilia panics and warns Daniel not to breathe in the lethal, toxic smoke. A pained groan escapes Daniel as he clutches his head, the poison finally beginning to overcome his iron will.
Daniel insists they must flee the clearing immediately, his voice strained as the smoke and fire surround them both.
Cecilia clings to the knight's uniform, her consciousness flickering as she realizes she is dragging him into her own peril. Daniel sweeps the princess into his arms, carrying her through a field of white flowers away from the toxic clearing.
Looking up at him in confusion, Cecilia asks why he saved her, her voice weak as she fights the poison.
A majestic waterfall cascades down the cliffs, the thunderous roar of water filling the lush forest air.
They sit together by the riverbank, Daniel immediately attending to his boots as they recover from the narrow escape.
Looking at Cecilia, Daniel asks why she saved him, noting he never ordered her to risk herself for his sake.
Cecilia stares back with wide eyes, her face still heavily marked by the dark, floral patterns of the morvalina toxin. Cecilia urgently tells Daniel they must detoxify him immediately, but the stubborn knight rejects her concern with a firm refusal. Daniel points out that she was hit far harder by the poison, insisting he will be fine with just water. Daniel moves toward the river, a sudden splash sounding as he begins to wash away the lingering toxins and heat.
Daniel washes away the toxins in a sparkling stream while Cecilia rests on the bank, watching him.
Cecilia warns that water only cleans the surface, as the poison will linger within his body for some time.
Running a hand through his damp silver hair, Daniel stubbornly insists he is fine and physically stronger than her. Cecilia resolves to finish harvesting the Morvelina, surprising the knight as she gazes at a single toxic purple flower.
Clutching the flower, Cecilia realizes Arya used her future sight to manipulate public perception during the celebration.
The blonde princess had conveniently predicted an illness to ensure the village stocked medicine and avoided major casualties.
A dark realization dawns on Cecilia that the supposed illness was actually caused by the lethal Morvelina blossoms.
Looking back at Arya's image, Cecilia concludes her sister never needed visions. She knew exactly what she was doing.
Cecilia adjusts her dark cloak, her mind racing with the implications of her sister's cruel and calculated deceit.
Standing by a crackling campfire at dusk, Daniel asks Cecilia if she is finished with her dangerous task. Cecilia questions why Daniel is worried about her, noting that even small amounts of the flower are lethal.
A rustle in the brush alerts Daniel, who protectively shields Cecilia and demands to know who is there. The knight's expression remains tense and suspicious as he scans the forest for any signs of further danger. Daniel's anger flares as he prepares to confront whoever is lurking in the shadows of the clearing.
Cecilia's stained hand grips Daniel's sleeve, silently urging him to stay focused as he looks back at her. Despite her condition, Cecilia firmly states they must descend the mountain immediately to avoid any further complications.
The pair moves through the woods, the silver-haired knight remaining vigilant as the princess leads the way.
Daniel mutters that her efforts are pointless, while Cecilia maintains her resolve despite the toxins ravaging her skin.
A look of inner conflict crosses Daniel's face as he watches the princess struggle with the poison.
Returning to the palace, Daniel stands in a dimly lit room, his red eyes reflecting a cold, guarded intensity.
He turns away, his profile etched with exhaustion and the weight of the secrets he carries for his master.
Daniel gently reaches for Cecilia's face, a sudden moment of intimacy amidst a backdrop of blooming flowers.
He reassures her that he does not find her condition disgusting, his gaze steady and surprisingly soft.
A quick touch startles Cecilia as Daniel asks what she is thinking, his hand still lingering near her cheek.
Daniel quickly masks his emotions, claiming he isn't thinking of anything in particular despite the tension between them.
When Cecilia stumbles, Daniel catches her instantly, a look of genuine concern breaking through his stoic facade.
He stares down at the princess, the blue light of the room highlighting his sharp features and red eyes.
Cecilia gasps for air, her body finally beginning to buckle under the weight of the Morvelina's potent toxins.
Ignoring her weak protests, Daniel declares he will carry her to her room to ensure she recovers safely.
As he sweeps her into his arms, Cecilia wonders why he is showing her such unexpected kindness.
Looking up at him, Cecilia wonders if he truly doesn't dislike her, even in her poisoned state. Lying in bed, Cecilia breathes heavily, her consciousness fading as the detoxification process finally begins its work.
Daniel watches her from the bedside, asking how long the painful process will take to reach completion. Realizing she needs hydration, the silver-haired knight turns to fetch some water to help her recover.
He stands alone in the opulent room for a moment, his back turned to the unconscious princess.
Finding the room empty of supplies, Daniel decides he has no choice but to go and get water himself.
A startled maid jumps as the knight approaches her in the hallway, requesting immediate assistance for the princess.
Surrounded by a floral aura, Daniel politely asks the maid for a water pitcher and a glass.
The maid quickly provides the tray, and Daniel thanks her with a charm that leaves her momentarily dazed.
Reflecting on his past as a slave, Daniel notes how his old skills are proving useful in this palace. He recalls how his manipulative charms worked on other sisters, but his thoughts drift back to Cecilia.
Daniel ponders why his usual charms and influence seem to have absolutely no effect on the stoic Cecilia. He observes that no matter how kind or friendly he acts, Cecilia consistently brushes him off. Returning to her side, he looks down at the poisoned princess, still grappling with her resistance to him. Daniel sits by the bed, his red eyes focused on Cecilia as he waits for any sign of her awakening.
As she stirs, Daniel offers her the water glass, his movement quick and attentive to her needs. Cecilia begins to sit up, her hand reaching out for the glass as she recovers her strength. She stares at her hand, the dark floral stains of the Morvelina serving as a grim reminder of her mission.
Daniel asks if she finally wants to drink, watching her closely as she processes her surroundings.
Reaching out, Cecilia touches Daniel's face with her stained hand, considering the poison still lingering within her.
Cecilia's stained hand rests against the Silver Knight's chest as the lingering toxins continue to mar her skin.
Looking away, Daniel wonders why she didn't detoxify herself immediately, feeling the poison's effects finally taking hold. The silver-haired knight maintains a stoic and cold expression despite the physical strain he is currently enduring. Clutching her head in agony, Cecilia realizes Daniel has already left her side, her breath hitching as she coughs.
Beads of sweat roll down Daniel's face as he questions if his resolve was slipping away until now.
Cecilia collapses onto the bed, a series of painful, heavy coughs racking her body as the poison takes hold. Daniel stands tall over the suffering princess, reflecting on the agony she endures from the tiny amount of remaining poison. His red eyes narrow with resentment, remembering how Cecilia's royal family caused his own people such immense, unforgivable suffering. Memories of a burning building haunt the room while Cecilia continues to cough violently, her strength almost entirely spent.
The silver-haired knight looks down at the princess with a complicated mixture of duty, hatred, and unacknowledged concern.
Daniel sits quietly by the bedside, watching over Cecilia as she lies unconscious and heavily stained by the toxin.
Gazing at the princess, Daniel privately hopes that his presence and efforts provide at least a small measure of relief. Cecilia gasps for air, her chest heaving as she struggles to breathe through the suffocating weight of the Morvelina poison. Watching her struggle, Daniel's expression remains unreadable as he silently wonders if the princess is in immense physical pain. A sudden, soft rustle sounds as Daniel gently places a cool, damp cloth onto Cecilia's forehead to soothe her. Daniel feels a wave of relief as Cecilia calms, though he notes the dark, stubborn stains of poison still linger. The knight remains a silent sentinel, watching over the sleeping princess as her breathing finally begins to even out.
Cecilia wakes and notices the cloth, her mind clouded with confusion as she wonders who provided her with such care.
Seeing Daniel sitting beside her with his eyes closed, Cecilia silently questions what the knight is still doing there.
Daniel looks downward, his face a mask of quiet contemplation as he remains by the princess's side during her recovery. Cecilia stares into the distance, her mind racing as she tries to recall if Daniel knew someone named Alicia. The princess remains silent, her blue eyes reflecting a deep internal conflict as she processes her current precarious situation. Turning to the knight, Cecilia offers a soft apology for causing him such unnecessary worry during her moments of weakness. Cecilia's face remains heavily marked by the dark toxins, her expression serious as she looks back at her silver-haired sentinel. Daniel stares directly at her, his red eyes sharp and focused as he prepares to address the princess's reckless behavior.
Letting out a heavy sigh, Daniel asks why she pushes herself so hard, his voice carrying a hint of frustration.
The knight insists he would worry regardless of her abilities, reminding her that she had just completely collapsed from exhaustion. Cecilia reflects bitterly on his supposed worry, remembering that he was the very person who had killed her before.
Startled by her sudden intensity, Daniel begins to ask what she means before she can cut him off again.
Donning her dark hood, Cecilia firmly states her intention to visit Sister Arya as soon as her task is finished.
Daniel reluctantly accepts her decision, his expression guarded as he realizes he cannot sway the princess from her chosen path.
Cecilia sits on the edge of the bed, clutching her arms as she mentally prepares for the coming confrontation. Daniel ponders her cryptic words, unable to shake the unsettling feeling her sudden, sharp outburst had left behind. Reaching for his chin, the knight wonders about the strange, knowing look that had crossed the princess's stained face.
Daniel walks down the long, empty palace hallway, his back to the camera as he moves toward his next objective.
Cloaked in shadow, Cecilia announces to her sister that the removal of the deadly Morvelina toxin is finally complete. Arya's eyes go wide with feigned shock as she gasps, asking Cecilia what could have possibly happened to her. Arya coyly suggests that attending the upcoming ceremony might be impossible for Cecilia, given her current, unsightly, poisoned state. Cecilia thanks her sister for the concern, while Arya privately plots to use the situation to her own advantage. Surrounded by a floral aura, Cecilia defiantly declares she will attend as royalty, much to Arya's hidden, dark amusement. Daniel stands watchfully behind the princess, his expression tense as Cecilia smiles through the dark patterns on her skin. With a sweet, false smile, Arya praises Cecilia's admirable attitude and offers her hollow help as an older sister. Cecilia politely excuses herself, turning to leave with Daniel while Arya's fake warmth begins to instantly cool away.
Watching them leave, Arya's expression turns cold and malicious, deciding that her sister needs to be taught a lesson.
Cecilia looks back with a knowing gaze, her blue eyes sharp as she confirms her resolve to the silver-haired knight.
Left alone, Daniel sits in deep silence, his thoughts consumed by the princess's mysterious words and the path ahead.
Cecilia stands before a bookshelf, looking at a single purple flower in a white vase while she plans her revenge.
Her eyes glow with a cold blue light as she vows to crush Arya's future and witness her downfall.
In her private chambers, Cecilia works over a boiling concoction, a sudden gobo sounding as the chemical mixture bubbles.
Cecilia ties a white mask over her face, her eyes fierce as she holds a golden vial, ready for war.
Holding her finished concoction, Cecilia observes the golden vial as the final piece of her plan falls into place. Cecilia pulls up her dark hood, her face still marked by the Morvelina poison's persistent and unsightly floral stains. Accompanied by her silver-haired knight, Cecilia prepares to leave the room, her expression stoic despite her current physical condition.
Daniel reflects on Cecilia's cold dismissal, deeply questioning her sharp attitude toward things she deems completely unnecessary.
Nearby, palace maids focus on their duties, meticulously arranging large bouquets of fresh pink flowers for the upcoming event. Noticing a group of visitors in the distance, Cecilia observes that some guests have arrived at the palace for a tour. Arya, the pink-haired sister, engages in polite conversation with a nobleman amidst a backdrop of vibrant blooming flowers. Spotting her sister approaching, Arya greets Cecilia with a bright smile that masks her hidden and truly malicious intentions. Cecilia remains guarded, her blue eyes sharp as she faces Arya with the poison's dark stains still prominent on her skin. Maintaining her facade of royal grace, Arya looks away with a gentle expression, perfectly playing the role of the kind sister. Observing from the sidelines, the maids whisper among themselves,
praising Arya's supposedly kind and generous nature toward everyone.
Arya brushes a strand of pink hair behind her ear, radiating a false warmth that easily charms those around her.
Cecilia watches Arya's overly joyful performance, internally questioning what her sister is truly trying to accomplish this time.
A maid curiously asks Arya about the future, clearly swayed by the princess's charismatic and saintly public image.
Arya continues her performance, gesturing gracefully as she maintains the appearance of a benevolent, wise, and approachable royal.
Looking back at her stained sister, Arya offers a sweet look that hides her deep inner contempt for Cecilia's current state. Dismissing the interaction, Cecilia bids Arya farewell and walks away with the silver-haired knight following closely behind her. Watching them depart, Arya stands alone in the hallway, her cheerful mask beginning to slip as she stares at their backs. Surrounded by dark vines, Arya seethes internally, wondering why Cecilia would dare to ask for the results of her foresight. Once they are alone outside, Daniel gazes at the princess, his expression filled with an unspoken concern for her health. A soft sigh escapes Cecilia as she closes her eyes, the physical and mental strain of the day taking a toll.
Daniel rubs his forehead in frustration, reluctantly accepting Cecilia's stubborn decision to move forward despite his many worries.
Cecilia stands quietly in the garden, her head bowed as she prepares herself mentally for the next step of her mission.
Resolute, the princess walks away from a stone bench, her dark cloak fluttering as she focuses on the lingering poison. Concentrating on the toxin remaining in her system, Cecilia's blue eye narrows with determination to finally purge the Morvelina.
A sudden presence startles the princess, her eyes widening in surprise as she looks up from her deep thoughts.
A tall, brown-haired man with striking yellow eyes appears before her, dressed in an ornate white and red uniform. The mysterious man looks down at Cecilia with a knowing smile, while she stares back at him in stunned silence.
Placing a hand over his heart, the handsome stranger offers a warm greeting amidst a flurry of falling flower petals.